Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and thank you to Sandbeck for inviting us here. I'm just going to start the presentation. After our presentation, we'll be splitting into 3 groups, and you guys will have the opportunity to actually see the product live and get a live demonstration outside in the parking lot. If we can start the video. Just want to give you a little bit of an overview. So what I'll just introduce you to Tharotech, our background, how we got into the simulation industry, also about the products and solutions that we have to offer, and the implementations that we've done around the world, or a sample of those. Beyond that, I just want to talk to you about 3 case studies, and then we can open up for some questions after that. So into the background of the business, we've been producing high fidelity, full mission simulators now for over 20 years. We started in the military industry, and we supply a number of governments around the world, including most African, Swedish, Croatian, Australian Defence Forces, all use our products on the military side of things. From this side, the technology lent itself very well to the mining fraternity. And ultimately, 15 years ago, we entered the mining industry. We've also more recently entered the civils and construction industry. Our company is ISO 9001 accredited, and all of our products are built to a MIL standard, military standard. So in terms of the background to the company, our head office is located in Durban, South Africa. We do all of our own manufacture, both hardware, software there. And ultimately, we created a very large business for ourselves in Southern Africa. Beyond that, we've been on a global expansion strategy, first opening offices in Perth and infiltrating that market successfully for the Asia Pacific side of things, Toronto, from the Toronto office, we've opened up many sites in North America. Again, Santiago, Chile, done the same for South America. We are currently exploring both this market and the lower Asian market. And ultimately, we will have an office opening here in Moscow. Within the next month to service the CIS clients. If we take a look at our global customer set, or just a snapshot of it, 7 of the top 10 Forbes listed mining houses are using us as their de facto supplier with regards to the simulator implementation. The CIS market has fallen behind the rest of the world in the adoption of simulation, but we've seen a lot of interest over the last few months here, and we believe this market will come around to the idea of simulation very, very rapidly. Our head office in Durban, South Africa, in planning for our global expansion strategy, we've made sure that we've got ample production capabilities ready to cater to our clients' specific requirements. If we talk about the product range, I need to define exactly what it is that we do. We offer tools to the training organizations and the training sections of your mines to enable you to better train your operators. There are a number of tools, but anything from computer-based training, and this is really for very, very low-level introductory information to these two products are more honed towards new recruits. Ultimately, our full simulator, or full mission simulator, comes in 2 variants. One can be containerized and therefore transportable, and the other one being a fixed facility, which would be built into a classroom type environment. Both do the same thing basically. The product itself, I won't get into too much detail now. We've got one of these containers outside here in the parking lot, as I mentioned, so we will actually go through there in groups and we'll describe this throughout everything. But just a high-level idea here now. We have an interchangeable cabin or cab, so you can run multiple pieces of machinery on one of these containerized base units. It has a full motion platform, full 360-degree screens. The idea is to immerse the individual in the most realistic environment possible. We use all OEM components. So, for instance, if it's a Sandvik DD420 like we have downstairs, you'll see that we've got the actual original equipment being used in that. So beyond the products and the implementation, why would one consider simulation? The idea is very, very straightforward when you think about it. We've spoken, there's been a number of presentations today about bucket fill factor and a number of equipment optimization ideas. Ultimately, the largest gain that a mine can get in this day and age is from a highly skilled, well-trained and honed operator. These gains are huge in comparison to the small percentages that can be gained by equipment improvements. If we talk about the actual side of things, increasing in productivity, we're able to track parameters within the simulator that you cannot track in the real world or are currently not being tracked in the real world, therefore allowing the operator to get a better understanding of his environment and how he can improve his production. If we go onto the safety side of things, we are able to simulate safety scenarios that you just simply cannot do in the real environment. You can't, and ultimately your operators can react better because they've now experienced it. And in terms of your maintenance costs, again, we are tracking parameters within the simulator that will highlight deficiencies in your operators' utilization of the machine, ultimately being able to improve or reduce your maintenance costs. Very important factor to this, we talk about a customized simulator. Our simulators are tailored to your exact environments. So beyond our replication of any of the OEM's machinery, we come and we actually replicate your mine its road rules, its traffic patterns, anything along these lines, to make sure that your operators, when they are training in as close as an environment as possible to your original mine, ultimately being able to give you a better trained operator. So if we talk about, we've talked about the product, but we can't just bring you a nice simulator, drop it off on site and say, there you go. Ultimately, it is one tool in a complete cycle or chain. You know, we're looking to have a completely augmented training process and how everything fits into it. So, you know, integrating everything with the mine, using the mine site specific requirements, as well as any other regulatory body that's required for any local industry. If we have a look at what a complete training program looks like, the first thing, and this is something that we provide beyond our simulators, is really understanding your training and assessment strategy at the highest level. Beyond that, then creating the program curriculum to integrate all of the tools, right down to individual session planners. And this will vary quite dramatically whether you are training new recruits or if you are trying to hone the skill of an experienced operator. Ultimately, we can help you create a bespoke training solution to provide this. For instance, we might run through a complete group, and you may still get some issues from your maintenance personnel explaining that you've got a particular issue that keeps occurring. We can tailor this and address this in the training material, ultimately train out that solution, and then further down the track and make sure that the training is correctly implemented and you're getting results in the real environment. So this gives you a broad overview in terms of the product and solutions that we have to offer. And I'd like to go through 3 case studies with you. The first one is Newmont in Elko in Nevada. The second one will be Aslan Blackrock in South Africa, and the third one is an Xstrata site in Queensland in Australia. So just with regards to the Newmont pilot program, we entered this pilot program. It was done over a course of about a month. We were dealing with experienced operators. This was done on a dual boom drill rig. And ultimately, the issue that was identified on site was the blast pattern. These guys were not getting the blast that they required every time, and it was slowing down their entire operation, needing to bring in more machinery or equipment to clean up after every blast had happened. We were it was very, very easy for us to identify that the issue was actually that the operators were only being tracked on the speed at which they were drilling the holes rather than ultimately the accuracy in terms of pitch and yaw error. After being able to highlight this to the operators in terms of just how badly they had their pitch and yaw errors occurring, they were immediately able to correct this. These were very experienced operators, most with over 10 years of experience. They were easily able to correct this, but we know there was a very, very large drop in the speed because they were now taking the time to do the setup, making sure that every hole had been drilled accurately. Over the course of several more exercises, we were able, in most cases, to achieve within about 2 to 3% of the original speed, however, maintaining the accuracy. So a successful pilot of this, and ultimately Newmont has invested with us quite heavily since then around the world. After this pilot in North America, we actually asked these operators what their sense was in terms of the training. Now, bear in mind they had been through a number of traditional training means before adopting simulation. And we asked them what they thought of the simulator. And the first one really, did they feel the training was relevant? Yes, absolutely they did. It was a categoric yes. Would they recommend it? Yes, they did recommend the technology and they have since adopted it. And did they gain value from it? A number of other things with regards to the training. They gave us some extra input and feedback that they would like to have the system tailored further to their requirements. But ultimately there was buy-in from the operators, and this is critical for any training program to ultimately work. Again, we set up a pilot process with them, a pilot project with them. We did a site evaluation. We developed the training objectives with them, set the training schedule, effectively gathered the data after this, and presented the results back to mine management. We did this again on 2 vehicles. There was an LHD and a drill rig once again. So we ultimately had 4 sessions with the guys, and this was an interesting pilot for us because we ran an incentive program for the operators. So what you'll see in some of them, their errors actually increase despite having more training sessions, and this is because they were trying to achieve more tonnage throughout this duration. So just some small errors that occurred. So we applied accelerator and brake simultaneously. We see a dramatic decrease of this over the number of exercises that the guys did. And a number of these errors that were occurring had just been standard practice for the operators. Nobody had ever questioned them on their application of a brake, the brakes while accelerating or anything along these lines. They just learnt it, and it was a bad habit that just continued through all of the subsequent operators as they learned from one another. And to the point where we actually brought in the equipment manufacturer in this instance to come and have a discussion with the operators, because they argued the point to us, explaining that our simulator actually had it incorrect. Ultimately, the manufacturer supported us in this, and we've subsequently changed a lot of their training programs since this. So just a few other errors, using the steering control levers and the brakes simultaneously. Again, you're seeing a marked reduction in these errors. So if we look at the holistic picture over the complete duration of the pilot project, we were able to reduce the number of errors in the first session for all of them, 779 errors occurring. By the last session, it was 95, and I believe through a continued program, we could have reduced that even below those figures. If we overlay this over the production gains, we were able, in the simulator, to increase the total number of tons dumped by 70.5%. This is a huge, huge margin. Now, we can't expect to achieve anywhere near that in the real world, otherwise we would be billionaires. But ultimately, you would see at least a 10% of this figure realized in the real world as we've tracked through our figures. An important factor here, again, it comes down to our ability to track individual items that are just not feasible or possible to track in the real environment, and educating the operators for this. So again, another highly successful pilot. So these pilots have been pilots that we've run ourselves, but later I'll show you the Extrata one where we've actually left the site to run this themselves. Again, with regards to ASMAN, they had a dual boom drill rig, and once again, through a number of training sessions, we were able to improve the number of, or improve their setup time with the machine, improve the accuracy of their drilling, but ultimately also improve the speed and the number of holes that they drilled. All through, once again, an accurate representation of the real environment in the simulator. So if we go on to our third pilot project, this is the most recent one done by Extrata. We effectively sent them the details that were required and asked them to perform a number of exercises with their operators and actually run through a standard pilot process without us actually monitoring it. So once again, a fairly similar process in terms of understanding the site's requirements. Having management buy-in and involvement is obviously critical. We need to be able to highlight exactly the improvements that have been made. Identifying the test subjects, which exercises we plan to do, and then identifying the vehicles. So in this instance, it was a Sandvik DD420, similar to the one here, as well as an LHD. The ADT details are not in this one. So again, ran through a fairly straightforward sample. The scoring matrix on the LHD, this is a generic set. The driving scoring, again, we've got a number of generic sets, but again, tailored in every instance. We've also got emergency situations and a number of other parameters that are tracked. This is the front end of the system. And beyond that, we can track an immense amount of additional information in the back end, which we can explain to you in more detail at the demonstration. So if we look at the LHD scores, and this is by individual over a series of 4 exercises and what we were able to achieve. Now I must note that we had limited amount of time with these guys, only 30-minute sessions. And ultimately we find a 30-minute session you can get enough information probably across on an LHD or do enough training. But when it comes to more complex pieces of machinery, something like a drill rig or bolter, really these machines require significantly longer durations for training. So if we look at castings here, again, total tons loaded, I had a 23% increase in that. Number of cycles completed within a designated time period. He managed to improve the number of cycles by 50% here. And the number of errors, again, reducing quite dramatically. Throughout all of these guys, there's I think 8 guys that we ran this test sample with. We have a significant improvement in the number of tons dumped and improvements in their cycles. So very, very good results on the LHD. Again, we find this machine, there are a lot of small parameters that are not being tracked in the real environment that ultimately the operators just don't understand, or they don't appreciate how their small actions will ultimately mean far, far larger gains to the mine in the big picture. So a couple more exercises here done by Russell. I think this was one of the individuals who was maybe a slower learner, and this is a key part to the training. It needs to be tailored to every individual. We can't expect everybody to learn at the same rate, just as we wouldn't expect to see the same errors occurring across multiple individuals. We will find that some are just better than others. If you go right back to the recruitment side of things, or the early phase of recruiting your operators, the simulators also help you really identify who the key personnel should be operating on each machine. So you may find that some operators just don't grasp the concept of an LHD very well, and he may remain an ADT or an articulated dump truck operator rather than progressing through a career path. Again, back to the LHD. A couple of others. I'll just click through a few of these so we get to the drill rig scenario. We will have 1 or 2 individuals who just don't perform, and it can often skew the results quite dramatically. This pilot process was done over quite a large number of individuals, and all of them actually achieving very, very reasonable results. So if we look at the LHD summary, it was actually split into two groups. Ultimately, we had the first group, Group 1, achieved a significant amount or a large increase in the total number of tons dumped, the total number of cycles, and they also managed to decrease the number of errors that they were making. If we look at Group 2, it's a little bit of a contrast in that they did ultimately, they were able to increase the total number of tons dumped, as well as improve the number of cycles completed, but their error rate increased quite dramatically. So in this instance, really this would require an additional level of training and addressing the underlying exercises, possibly pulling the gentleman out of whichever exercises they were doing, the operators, and putting them into more error or safety related exercises to help address the issues that have been caused, and then retest them on an overall exercise. So if we look at the concentration set of errors among each of these operators, some of the worst ones were, for example, use steering control levers while applying the brakes. Again, this is a machine maintenance abuse, and ultimately, by reducing the number of errors here, your maintenance costs should drop quite significantly. Again, spinning wheels while mucking, it becomes a tire wear issue. We've got a number of other productivity-related pieces of information that we can track along these lines. So, for example, bucket fill factor and all of these various things. Okay, so if we move on to something a little bit more complex now, the Sandvik DD420. As I mentioned to you, these operators were only doing 30-minute sessions, and I believe they only did 4 sessions on the simulators. Now, in this instance, I don't believe that was enough time, and we can actually see issues with regards to the guys actually getting worse as time went on. So ultimately, through this, we managed to improve the guys' drilling rate in terms of the number of holes that they were drilled, their setup time. From that perspective, we were able to increase that quite significantly. But we'll show you in the simulator, we have a number of training tools to enable the gentlemen to better understand their drill accuracy. And as soon as these training tools were switched off, the pitch and yaw errors increased dramatically. So their accuracy of drilling was actually quite poor once these had been switched off. So ultimately, this just requires quite a bit more time with the individuals, and as we said, back to similar to the Newmont process, just ultimately being able to spend the time to get the operators to a level of proficiency before removing the training tools, and ultimately just giving them the understanding with regards to pitch and yaw errors. As I say, we will be able to go through this in much more detail in the simulator and actually show it to you live, which is always a lot more interesting than listening to a few figures. All right, that's effectively the end of the cases. If you guys would like to ask any questions.